I'm Friar Ponchie Vasquez. I'm a Franciscan friar here at San Xavier Mission, so San Xavier del Bac. San Xavier was founded by a Jesuit priest, Father Francisco Eusebio Kino, and so he came. And what's interesting about that is that the O'odham village of Wak, which is here where you're at and where the parish church is at, is the village people sent a delegation to Mexico asking, in that period it was New Spain, ask Kino to come to here and to establish a mission. Basically also because of he brought cattle, there was new seeds, many of the European things that they did not see or did not have at that time in the villages or in this part of the country. He brought with him. And so the famous line is that the O'odham went and said, "Come and do at our village what you've done here." Basically, it's become a place of pilgrimage. The pilgrimages to Magdalena, which are done around the Feast of St. Francis, we know that there was pilgrimages done to Magdalena pre-Christian as well. So we know this was already part of their DNA, just the pilgrimage. And so then that the Catholicism and the church just came part of that, because they go to where Kino died, but also where the church is in Magdalena. And so that happens the same thing here, because it's the same saint, Francis Xavier. Some call it the recumbent saint, but basically it's the statue that is of St. Francis resting. The question would be, which St. Francis is it? It could either be Francis of Assisi, Francis Xavier, as well, because it's a multi-purpose statue. We change the clothing, and we will, on October it would be Francis of Assisi. In December it would be Francis Xavier. So that's the statue that you see really is a dead Christ, which is a devotion in the Catholic Church, that we have like Christ in the tomb, so the body lying there, and they would have a wig on it, and it would be Christ. That's what it really is, and then we changed it as time goes on. A multi-purpose, I call it, multi-purpose saint.
There was a period of time when at this mission there were no priests, and so the people were still here, the people were still worshiping and doing what it means to be Catholic. How does one be Catholic?
Again, the Catholic Church, we would hold that Scripture and tradition stand with equal authority. So we have other scriptures that we hold on to, and tradition, which is never to contradict the scriptures. So we don't just depend on scripture. We also have the tradition of the church, which has equal authority as the scripture, but it will never contradict. Tradition does not contradict scripture. And so they walk side by side. And so you have this great development in that sense of, when you come to particularly here among the native peoples, the native traditions, we would see that their rituals, and there was great conflict often in some, especially when the American government took over, because it's more Protestant based, the tensions, because we would tend to hold that if they accepted the faith and became Catholic Christians, we basically, their expressions, all of those expressions would be forms of prayer. Basically, and whether it's a sweat, whether it's here it would be like the rain ceremonies that happen in the new year of the O'odham, which is in June-July period. It's the prayer for rain and ices. So all of that kind of thing. So ceremonies we would look at more as different forms and expressions of the same thing, and that context is as long as it does not contradict scripture or tradition.
I would think it would be intriguing for you to talk about how you would define religion that kind of brings in this syncretism that we're talking about as well, where you see indigenous practices and customs and traditions as a type of prayer.
Religion would be a way of life. Here, the O'odham would also call it their himidag. We translate that into English culture, but see, it's a way of life in the context of living out one's, knowing who one is, and that one is connected to the divine, that basically that there is a God, And so, and that we are connected, and that all things that come from God are sacred. So we ourselves are sacred. All creation is sacred. And so for us, we are not a philosophy. We are not, we have all those things. But in the end, it is relationship, and God is experienced. That is the sacred. And I says, in things, in people, in all these things, and in suffering, and also in great joy. So that's why we have the cross. And I said, because again, the life of Jesus shows it to us. All those statues that are there, all those people, and they were persons that were alive like us, lived through those things, and we are to emulate them, and also take the risks, and also be, in that sense, always point to the other, which in the other ultimately is the divine. And this is why among the O'odham and indigenous people in general, the gift that they offer to all of the world and to the church, and as members of the church, that they have a great awareness of what is of the sacred in everything. And it's interesting, the whole beginnings speak about Itoi, which is their creator. Again, they don't speak of him as God. They talk about the Creator, which is Itoi, and really how they speak of him as the elder brother. They don't have the same concept of God that we in the West do. They speak of Itoi, who is the Creator, which we will place that as an attribute of God, or a divine attribute. They don't, he's the Creator. That's sufficient. He is the elder brother.
How do religions, when they're not part of that government often, or they might not be part of that cultural movement, what kind of challenges then are between, for example, that you would see with this 21st century world that we live within, but an ancient religion that we're talking about right now, Catholicism, which has been around for a few millennia. And so, is that something that's always in the making? Or would you say Catholicism is something that's already made and the world just needs to kind of adjust to it?
When I look at the context of, in the particular of the religion and the church particularly, what we see, again, when you talk about age, even here, like we're 200 years old. That's not really that old from our perspective. If you want to say Jesus lived 2,000 years ago. So it's like, and then, in a whole different part of the world, a whole different culture. And so you begin to look even at the scriptures. That's why we ground ourselves in the Acts of the Apostles. The church is in that sense of, we go back to the Hebrew scriptures, and what does it tell us? How do you, if you want to measure you see this all through ancient Israel, in the context of the Hebrew people, they says, if you want to know if you're following the Lord and how your government is doing, he goes, how do you treat the widow and the orphan? How do you treat the foreigner? He goes, look at how those people are treated, and we can see whether you are living, whether your society is living up to the covenant of the Jews, basically is following God. He goes, so if the widows are treated well, if the orphan is treated well, if the foreigner is treated well. And if they are not, what does that say about your government, your structure? And so we look to Jesus, who says, love others as I have loved you. So we don't have to look, that's why we go to the life of Jesus. We say, and so again, we come here, and the Kino came, the friars came. How do we love each other in this particular place, in this particular time? How do we, that's why we had no problem with Kino coming with, he brought seeds and food and all these things that have to do with, just living. He created structures. He shared what he knew. When we don't do that, aren't about that love, that the type of leadership that he talked about of washing people's feet, of becoming literally, he'll say, you become the slave of the other for the sake of love. These are the things that, again, how does that express over centuries and universally? That's how we would see it. And so you're grounded here in this place, we're in the United States now, and I says that how do we, each in our own particular way, give that which is ours to contribute? But it presupposes that we have faith, that we do believe, And so, and one of the reasons I chose to be a priest in the context of being a friar is because I wish to specifically serve the community of the faithful, and to help them on their journey.